of a shipping point, you see. The road out to Beaton, and the lake down to Gerrard, and the road up to Ferguson. It was the Ferguson mines that were working. But I remember Trout Lake had a water system. Last time I was up there, I noticed there was an old hydrant still standing, and they had a bank. That was all washed out before I was there. The boom was in the 90s. Mm. But the building gone, but a huge concrete vault, and I was told that was where the bank had been. Mm. But Ferguson, of course, had more people working out of it at the mines there. They had a hospital, but it was down, you see. From what Mr. Gerrard told me, country collapsed with the Klondike boom. She claimed all the men that were any damn good went to the Klondike, and that's why that country was flat. Mm. And revived in the war, you see, in the first war was the market for lead and silver. Mm. Then it went flat again, of course. Oh, yeah. Mm. Yeah, it was quite a settlement in Ferguson. The Silver Cup and Etiel were the big mines. They had a big mill, concentrator. Andy Daney was so straight. And it was the Silver Cup mining company that he'd made his money out, big money. They were using salt in their process. And that had to be freighted up with the wagons from Beaton. Mm. The ore down. Made a lot of business. But there was something about the mine wasn't paying, low metal price or something or other. And they started up. The story I got was that they hadn't been paying Daney. That he had something like $30,000 to get him on the books. But he's that kind of a guy. He wouldn't bother anybody for the money. Figured it was good. But it turned out this mine manager had been told by London, England, he could operate as long as the mine paid its way. Well, it wasn't paying. He gambled it would and kept on working until bingo. And there were a lot of stories around there, different outfits that when things were collapsing got into Daney so that he was broke. The Silver Cup mine, they operated the Silver Cup and the Etiel. Silver lead, yeah. Yeah, that country is attributed to Revelstoke, not Nelson. Mm. Their connection was all with Revelstoke. Mm. That's where food supply and everything came from. Say all plumes where they could. That's why before the trucks developed, it looked like this country was about finished. It cut all the timber they could get out. Mm. When the trucks came in, why, it looked like they never started. Mm. No. I was running Andy Daney's pack train.
Oh.
I was there 2 years. That is 2 summers. Mules, mostly. Mostly mules. Well, I can explain the setup while you see. We pack supplies to the mines and ore down to Ferguson. And from there it was hauled to Trout Lake. You want any about the individual mines? Oh. The longest trip we had was one called the Old Gold. I forget the mileage now. But the horses would only stand a round trip. Once in a while it was too heavy. So after they got a carload of ore out, I took the mule train over to the mine and stayed there. Made 2 trips a day over the summit and dumped it down on the Lardeau side. The mine was on the Duncan slope. Heavy snow country. Mine crew had to shovel the pass out for us the 1st of July one year. And it was staked by 3 old timers, the Brown brothers, Cy, Hemlock, and Huey. They told me when they made their first trip prospecting in there hadn't been a single stick cut where the town site of Ferguson was. They were the first men in there, I guess. And it was they had a good lead, not too much ore. But the glacier receding exposed a good body of ore, and that's what they were working on. They started first year they'd worked it. When I was up there. The Triune Mine was shipping good. We did a lot of packing there. It was a tough place. The Triune Basin, mine was way up on the side hill. I was never even up to it. They had a baby tram came down the basin, and horses came up, and dumped the stuff there, loaded up with ore, and went down. Everything had to go up in the horses to that place. Fill wood, mine timbers, as well as regular supplies. It was just bare rock, and ice and snow. It's probably still a good mine. The boom in the Slocan country. Brokers were promoting company on every old claim in the country. It was very bad for the country too, because when it collapsed there was nothing. They just mined every pound of ore they could find without doing any development, you see. a big sawmill at Gerrard. They were talking for that. I forget the name now. It was an English company. They owned all the timber on Trout Lake. But when the Depression came on, that was the end of it. I think it operated several times, I think, by different companies. It was a big plant, their own machine shop and everything. But there was no logging going on around the Trout Lake Ferguson country. There had been. I think it was Stobart Lake was chock full of huge cedar logs that somebody got out and got stuck. Couldn't finance the rest of it or something. Before I went in there. Those logs would be worth some money today if they existed. There was nothing but horses then. I think it was about the time I went in there, Andy Craig brought in the first Ford car and ran mail stage with it between Ferguson, Trout Lake and Beaton. That was the first auto in that country. I wouldn't swear that was 1915 or 1916. It was one of those years. No fires while I was there. I wanted Andy Daney to write up the early days of it. He wouldn't. He was raised in the San Juan country in Colorado. Apparently very similar country, stood on edge, straight up and down. I guess that's why he made so good in there. The story was that he came in there one summer with nothing. In the fall he owned a big outfit. He was an expert. He took a gold medal at the Chicago World's Fair on packing. He's about the whitest man I ever had anything to do with. The saying was that Andy Daney's word was better than anybody else's bond in BC. Oh, Red McLeod, yes. The stories in print about him, you've read them, I guess. About taking the cop's horse and so on. Red was a real mountain man, and he could. But I came to the conclusion that he was a kleptomaniac, that he could not help stealing. Oh, I thought of a couple of items. One time he was in Lardeau, and there were some men came out of the hills and had a yen for a feed of chicken. And there were no chickens in Lardeau. Red helped himself to a rowboat. Oh, you can take this if you want. I think I've got it out.
Okay. Go ahead.
He helped himself to a rowboat, rowed 17 miles down to Caslow, raided somebody's chicken yard, rode back 17 miles to Lardeau and gave the guys the chickens. That's the kind of guy Red was. If he saw someone doing work, and they didn't have the right tools for it, he'd say, "Oh, I'll fix you up." And he'd go and help himself to somebody else's and present them to the guy that needed them. I don't think I saw right after about 1926. Right, there was another story on Red that he was a very ugly customer when he got drunk. And be drinking at the bar, and all of a sudden, just out of blue sky, he'd nail the guy next to him. With a bottle or anything came handy. But, like all the tough guys, he ran into somebody that was a little tougher. And he got half killed in a scrap, and after that he was a very good boy. There was no trouble with Red after that. I was working up at the old Eureka Mine up on Eagle Creek. And the foreman there was an old friend of Daney's. And came to town, came back, and said Daney was looking, couldn't pick up enough experienced packers. He asked him if he knew of a young fella who would be willing to learn the game. He said, I thought of you. What do you think of it? Sure. Big money those days, $3.50 a day on board. Oh, that was big money. Next year it was $5 on board. And he worked every day of the month. Oh, June to November. That is, sometime in June to sometime in November. Then, sometimes there was winter work, rawhiding ore. I know one winter we rawhided ore from the Beatrice mine over at Camborne. Don't know how many feet of snow there were, but we had one experience. There were two of us. That's the mountain ridge. Here's the trail. There was a comb of snow hanging over. And went down. We made 2 trips a day. Our first trip, we noticed it was getting mild. And our partner, he was an old timer. He says, well, we get back up there, that's that. He says, we're not making another trip. It turned 2 miles, liable to break. Well, we'll stop to wind the horses, we'll stay here. While we were there, down she came. Right bang in the middle of it. What saved us, there was a little bit of a hump here with a few trees on it. The slide came down like that. We were hung with horseshoes that time. But one of us had to go up to the mine and get the mine crew. And they took putting there all night to dig the trail out so we could get the horses home. A round trip, 8 or 10 miles was a good day. We got over that and it was too much. 3 or 4 miles, we made 2 trips a day. Of course, that country's so darn steep. Oh, I thought of something. The first night I got into Ferguson, it was after dark. And sitting around the hotel, the frontier type, several old timers. One asked me, where you from, kid? I said, Nelson. Oh, down the flat country, eh? How's things down the flat country? So I wondered what kind of a country it got into. Well, the next day going up the North Fork, I saw it. Oh, I just thought of it. There's a very conspicuous mountain called the Bad Shot. And there were quite a lot of English money around there in the early days, in the 90s when it was first struck. And some prospector told an Englishman with money, sold him a claim on the Bad Shot Mountain. He bought it, and he was in the bar inquiring about what was the best way to get the ore out from there. An old-timer spoke up. The only GD way to get that GD ore off that GD hill is a GD pack train of GD bald eagles. I just thought of a story in Andy Daney. Daney was the freighter in Ferguson, and Andy Craig was the freighter in Trout Lake. There's a chap named, I think, Lardeau, and he got fighting drunk. And got into a tussle with Andy Craig in Trout Lake and licked him. And that kind of went to his head. He had another drink or two and jumped on his saddle horse and went up to Trout Lake announcing he'd licked Craig and he was going to lick Daney. Daney's barn was like this. Here's the street. Hotel was here. There was a hotel here. Daney's house was over there. So he often used to shortcut going home. That way. And this scrapper was in there waiting for Daney, bragging about what he was going to do to him. When Daney walked in, "Oh, the man I'm looking for." I didn't see it. They told me Daney took one look at him. "Oh," he says, "I haven't got time to bother with you, you son of a bitch," and wham! And the guy picked himself up, kind of came back to his senses. He says, "I'm damn glad he didn't have time to bother with me. He pretty near threw him through the wall." No. Mm-mm. He's very powerful. He had small hands, but his wrist was the same size. I saw Daney sleigh hauling ore, and the sacks were frozen. He jumped on them. They didn't break. He picked two of them up and threw them on the wagon, 400 pounds. And he was chain lightning in his movements. There was one day I was in one of his shacks looking for some repair material, and in moving stuff around, here was an old Colt 45. Of course, kid-like, I had to pull it out and take a look at it. In walked Daney. And that was when I learned that you sometimes see in writing that fire sparking from a man's eyes. His eyes were fiery. I knew I had to think quick. I told him, I said, well, Andy, I've heard about this fanning the hammer and these old pistols, but how in hell did they do it? Fire died down, he went to work and explained to me. He said, I know how it's done, but I couldn't do it myself. I just know how. And he demonstrated. You see, you hold the trigger back with one hand. The hammer flies back, you see. The end comes up and the trigger fires. It's the fastest way you can fire a gun, but God knows where the shots go. He couldn't do it, no. His hand was just a blur. So fast. He said he couldn't do it. That was Andy. He had a reputation as a fighting man, and the people told me they didn't know of any time he'd been in a fight. They just didn't want any part of him. I'm going down. Steamer on a Friday, once a week. They hit to Caslow. Stayed in Caslow overnight. Steamer the next day to Lardeau, Saturday. And she took a barge with the train on it. And the train went up to Trout Lake. To Gerrard, and turned around and came back. And Cap Fitzsimmons was running a small steamer on Trout Lake. Steamer to Caslow, and then overnight stay. Steamer to Lardeau with the train. Train 33 miles to Gerrard. Then 16 to 17 miles steamer Gerrard to Trout Lake. Then it was horses from there on, or foot. Till Andy Craig brought in that Ford. I forget it. There's a story I heard. Mrs. Jowett, Andy Daney's mother-in-law, was running the Trout Lake Hotel. And it was a good place. And she was very good to any of us young fellows who were working for Daney. I heard afterwards, I was away in the war, that when Prohibition came on, they really stocked up. Filled their cellar with liquor. And anybody they knew that was thirsty, why, they'd help them out. And the story was that somebody reported it to the police. And a cop went up from Caslow. And on the steamer, when they went to land at Trout Lake, something went wrong. The cop was out and standing in the bow of the boat, quite conspicuous, and it was approaching the wharf. Of course, Simpson, he was running the hotel with Mrs. Gerrard. He was down there to meet the boat, of course, along with everybody else. Well, of course, he saw the cop and hightailed it home. And apparently the skipper had so much trouble with that boat, getting her to had to back out, and he got pretty near across the lake before he could get turned around and come back. But That's the kind of country was, the kind of people over there. There was nothing dirty. It was a very, very exceptional mining camp.